I think I am in my book reading era. Isn't that great? I am going to be showing you guys all the books that I read in the month of July. I have read 6 books, and as you can see, I am a tabber of my books. 6 books is pretty good for me. I think the most I've gotten is probably like 4 or 5 in a month. I usually only read at night, so that's kind of why I feel like my time frame is so spread out. I do tab them. I don't have a system, and I don't know why I do it. It's taken over into almost something that's like unhealthy, because some books are just extra tabbed up and it's just stuff I love. Also, I just want to get out there, my ratings are very generous. I'm sure as I go on and read more books, I'll probably be a little more, I wouldn't say harsher with my ratings, but I probably wouldn't give out a 5 stars easily. But certain books just make me so happy. So if those books do that for me, then I will be giving them a 5 stars. So I will say that I did have a good chunk of those in this month. And that is kind of all the general things I wanted to say for my first book video. I hope you guys enjoy. So, of the 6 books that I read, I would say all of them are romance. I am a big romance girl. I have books that aren't romance, but I am in a romance kick right now. I don't know why, what was in the air in July, but this is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Listen, I can't really remember what was in this book or what happened. Okay, this book is about the girl Anastasia who meets Nate. She wants to become a professional ice skater. They're both in college, it's like their last years, and she is very dedicated to her skating. That's all she can think about. It's a very common hockey romance. He is the captain of the team. A little issue happens where they kind of have to work together. I rated this a 4 star. And now that I'm like thinking about it, I would kind of go back and forth between a like 3.5 or a 4 star, just because of how long this book was. I mean, it was 400 plus pages, and for me, I really like the chase parts, like the banters, like I love that. But they got together pretty quickly, and that kind of just like fizzled out for me. So for the rest of the book, it's just them kind of navigating the relationship, which I thought was really good, and the dynamic between the two was really good. She briefly touched on the problem that was presented in the beginning of the book, and then the book ended, it was like happily ever after. So I would say the first chunk of this book is really good. The next book that I'm going to talk about is, I think, the book that really kicked this reading spree for me. My sister recommended this book, and I was there at the store when she got it, and I remember looking at it and be like, I don't think I'd be interested in that. That book looks so weird. Like, that dynamic seems off. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This book, I ate this up so much. Like, this book was everything for me, and I still think about it to this day. And this is also a book that I tapped a lot in, because I'm over here like giggling. I'm laying down, I have my headphones in, listening to my playlist, and I am just giggling at this stuff. I need to slow down. Okay, I rated this book a 5 star, and I would have rated it more if it's possible on Goodreads. That I feel like could be sometimes controversial, because I've seen things on Ali Hazelwood saying that her books are the exact same. It's like a copy and paste of the other, but honestly, I don't care. I will eat those up every time. I will, because she knows her stuff and she does it every time perfectly. This book, I think, for getting into her books was like the perfect book for me, because I know her system. I know how it works. So now every book, I know what's gonna kind of happen with the dynamic between the 2 people. So this book is about Olive, who is a 3rd year PhD candidate. Sorry, I don't really know like the specifics of books sometimes. She's not really in a relationship. She hasn't been in many relationships, and she's trying to show her friend that she is in one, or like convince her that her dating's going well. That's what it said on the back. So she kisses the first guy she sees, and it's Adam, this man right here. And he is the professor who is Stanford's reigning lab tyrant. She explains to him why she kissed him randomly one day, and then he agrees to fake date, and they have to kind of prove to her friend that they're dating and all that great stuff. You know, there's a little push and pull, the banter behind it. And the dynamic between these two characters are very polar opposites, but I don't even know what I can say without like spoiling it. Like, what's considered spoilers for this? I'll just like read the little end part. Suddenly their little experiment feels dangerously close to combustion, and Olive discovers that the only thing more complicated than a hypothesis on love is putting her own heart under the microscope. Is the fake dating really fake for them? That's kind of like the whole premise of this book. One thing that I do love about Ali Hazelwood is that she develops the relationship more than focusing on like the physical aspect. She also does a lot of emotional stuff, so you can see that breakdown between the two characters, and that builds and kind of creates more for like the intimate aspects of the relationship instead of just like getting right into it in like the first few chapters. You kind of have to like, it's a slow burn, so you kind of have to wait for it, but that's, I feel like, lightly touched on because that's not like the whole point of the book. It flowed great, banter was great. Her writing, she allows you to, I don't even know how to describe this. The way she writes, I'm just so like easily invested into what's going on in the characters' like heads and what they're thinking, and you can easily relate to that. You can really immerse yourself into what's going on in their lives, and you can feel how they're feeling. Also, there's a bonus chapter in this one of his perspective. This one's so good. Please read it if you have not. Even if you don't like it, maybe reconsider, because I love this book so much. This is probably my favorite book that I've read this month, and I'm gonna show you guys the playlist that I listened to for it because I still listen to these playlists. This is the one. I'll put like a little screenshot too. Music and reading books is just the perfect thing. The next book that I read in the month of July is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. After reading The Love Hypothesis, I was like dumbfounded. How am I ever gonna top a book? Like I put all of myself into that book. So then I was looking at my little bookshelf and I was like, what am I gonna read next? I needed something similar. And I was like, okay, I don't really have like any more romance books like that, but this one, it is basically about, I can't even think of their names. So this is about Nora Stevens, who is a literary agent, and Charlie is a book editor. They had a little moment where their meet cute was not cute. That's what it said on the back here. And they go to Sunshine Falls in North Carolina. Nora goes with her sister Libby, who just wants to get away from the city. She's from New York. They both grew up there for such a long time, and they just want to break and go to like this nice little calm small town. And that is where Nora is like constantly bumping into Charlie, and that kind of leads into like the deeper dive of the story and why he's there. And they definitely see each other as like rivals, so it's push and pull. Really great banter. I did think the book was slow in the beginning, and she focused a lot on the relationships, not just between the two main characters, but also between Nora and her sister Libby, which I was kind of like, this is boring. But also thinking back to it, she really dived into the relationship of the two sisters and how like that dynamic can work, especially in their situation. I did tab this one a little bit more, not so much, it just looks like it. But there were a lot of cute moments in this, them growing and learning about one another. Like I mentioned, the relationship between Nora and her sister. There was also a cute part in the book where she says, like, she mentions all the tropes that happen in books about a girl from city goes to small town and realizes that this is where she's meant to be, so she'll stay there and meet the love of her life. But Nora's like, I'm not gonna do that, like that's not who I'm gonna become. And you can see like parts in the book where it's like, you could, that this is, you are becoming that. I'm really excited to read her other books because I've heard great things about them. Overall, I really love this book. I rated it a 5 star. I would say it like teeters back and forth between like 4.75 to 5 stars, but I am gonna hold true to my 5 stars. The more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? It is really good. And it's not Love Hypothesis, but it is Book Lovers. This is the playlist that I listened to. The fourth book that I read is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo from Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this one, I've heard many great things about this on Book Talk. This was my first book of hers that I've read, and I know she has like a lot of great ones. But going into this, I was kind of going into it blind. I was like, I don't really know what's going on. I've seen TikToks here and there, but I've always scrolled past them because I knew I was gonna read this at some point. I did find this book to be interesting, but it wasn't really my like cup of tea. I thought it was interesting to see like how her story developed, and there was a twist at the end that I like totally caught me off guard, and I was like, after I read it, it didn't register for a second, and I was like, why does that matter? And then I read it again, and I had to like go back. I was like, oh, okay, hold on. So that part really got me. The last few pages were really interesting. but I wouldn't say I was so eager to reach and like read this book. I feel like it fell short in some areas because it was just so repetitive, because she does have 7 husbands and you go through them at each part of the book. I think seeing the dynamic between the two and how she's evolved as a character was really interesting, but there were parts that I loved, some parts that I hated. Yeah, I don't know, I just thought this book was good. I went in kind of with the expectation that I was gonna come out loving it like everyone was on TikTok. I'm not saying I hate it, but it didn't do that for me. I did kind of guess where the ending was going to, just based off like the first few chapters. I give this a 4-star. Like I said, my ratings are probably all over the board, and I'm sure some people might disagree, and I could see where people would love it. This is the one that I listened to. My 5th book for the month. I'm biased. I am gonna say I am biased. Ali Hazelwood Love Theoretically. This is one of her newer releases, and people are saying that this is like her best book, yada yada yada. Some people are saying that it's the same thing, copy and paste of the Love Hypothesis, and so what? So what is what I gotta say to that. I don't know what I'm tabbing, to be so honest, and I started underlining. What am I doing? The beauty of this is like I can go to any page and I know I'll find anything that man says. I'll be like, there it is. Elsie is a theoretical physicist and Jack is an experimental physicist, and he's like high up at MIT, I'm pretty sure. Jack Smith, who rules over the physics department at MIT, and Elsie is an adjacent professor, so she's like going back and forth between like teaching class and stuff. She can't really focus on the experiments that she wants to like study and work on, so she's trying to go for a job, but because she's also a adjacent professor, she's broke. So on the side, she fake dates people, and the person that she fake dates, his brother is Jack. Can I say that? Yeah, because Jack Smith, the annoyingly attractive and arrogant older brother of her favorite client, turns out to be the cold-hearted experimental physicist who ruined her mentor's career, undermined the reputation of theorists everywhere, and he's the same Jack Smith who rules over the physics department at MIT, standing right between Elsie and her dream job. There's just already so much going on in like the first few pages. The way that Ali Hazelwood developed her writing, not saying she was bad ever, but the progression of it and how she's was able to just make a whole new story out of romance and STEM is amazing. The dynamic between these two people is so good. I am going back and forth between whether I love Love Hypothesis or Love Theoretically. I can't pick. I don't know what to do. Jack, that man, is perfect, can read Elsie, and that's like the dynamic between the two. She kind of puts on these personas for the people that she's dating, because she can easily, like, I'd call like a chameleon to her environment and adapt and become who people want her to be. So she doesn't really know herself, but Jack can see right through that, and that is kind of where their dynamic comes in. And she's always seen him, and then because of the job interview, she's just like, I cannot get away from this man. I love the banter. There's great banter. There's, once again, the great dynamic of seeing how these characters grow emotionally, especially Elsie, and kind of figuring out who she is, and Jack trying to help her in that. And then, of course, that leads into like the intimate side of the relationship, but once again, not the focus of it. But he has a way with words and a way of analyzing people. I love this book. I thought the plot went perfectly. Ali Hazelwood, I never feel like drags her books too long. Every point in the plot is perfect, and there's nothing that's ever like excessive. Like I said, for Love Hypothesis, you can immerse yourself so well into her writing and understand it. Like, even if she's talking in like scientific terms, you still kind of have an understanding of it. Some of the stuff I don't really understand, so I like blow by that, but it's very easy to follow along with, and you are like in the emotions of the characters, and her writing does such a good job pulling you in. Bless Ali Hazelwood, and let's pray that she comes out with more of these books. I think I tabbed this book the same way that Jack analyzes Elsie. That's the playlist I used. Can we guess what I rated this? 5 stars. Yeah, it was just so good. My last and final book for the month, Ali Hazelwood again. So I had to finish her books. I know she has a book with like a collection of novellas in it, and I will get to that. Love on the Brain, Ali Hazelwood. This one, I think is her second release, which doesn't feel like it should be. Once again, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews, especially on this book, saying it didn't really hit the mark as Love Hypothesis did, and I can kind of agree with that. This is about Bee and Levi are put on this project at NASA. She does neuroengineering and he is, I think, just engineering. There's like this workplace dynamic where it's like forced proximity. She's got this great job at NASA. She's like, this is great, this is my dream job. But then she's like, hold on, Levi's there. So forced proximity between the two. There's some issues in the workplace where her stuff is like missing, stuff is getting messed with. Levi starts to help her, tries to figure out what is going on. So like that's where the dynamic shifts. I would say that this book would probably be like the weakest of Ali Hazelwood. It didn't do it as much for me as the other ones did, but once again, there was still the banter, there was still the development of the character. Once you know how she writes them, it's so easy to see the relationship grow. Even when one of the characters doesn't see it, you can still see it as the reader. So I think that is what I also love about Ali Hazelwood's style of writing and the stories that she's making. I did feel like her other books flowed easier in the plot, and I think the same would happen here, but I did see like areas where she could have done stuff differently. I thought this book was really good, but it just wasn't as good as Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically. So I gave this a 4 stars. And let me show you guys the playlist, because that's also another playlist that I've been listening to a lot. So those were all of the books that I read in the month of July. I would say that this month was very strong. Even though they were all romance, the lighting's just getting like darker and darker every time. I'm so sorry. All of July, I never got around to finishing this, but I'm reading You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero? I don't know how to say that, her last name, I'm so sorry. I'm just reading this like 10 pages at a time. It's a little self-help book. I'm really close to finishing it, but just a little quick mention of this book because I'm still actively reading it. Another one that has caused me trouble, 1984. Still reading this, so hopefully I'll get done with this by the end of this month. Now, moving on to my TBR for August. I kind of already started this one. I needed a new book. It's Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Where the Crawdads Sing from Delia Owens. I think that's how you say her name. They made it into a movie, and I'm really trying to not watch movies without reading the book first. I tried to read this in July, and I just like couldn't really get into it because I was on my romance kick. Now I am going to attempt this month. I think I'm gonna give this a shot because it's a very thick book. A Little Life. I've heard people say so many things about this, and I'm scared to read this because of how emotionally damaging it could be. I'm not a very emotional reactor when it comes to books and like movies. Maybe this might just destroy me. I teared up during Barbie, so maybe I'm like growing as a human. Twisted Love by Anna Wong. I don't know if I'm saying her name again correctly. I'm so sorry. Heard good and bad things. We will see. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Once again, same thing. I've heard many amazing things about this book. So that is going to conclude this book wrap-up video for the month of July. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I'm sorry if I'm bad at this. I will try and grow as I post more book videos, but this is something I've been thinking about doing, and I'm really excited to do it because I don't really have anyone to share my thoughts on these books with. And hopefully I will get better at verbalizing my thoughts too in this journey I'm starting. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.